The first gunshot tore across the desert like a scream, sharp enough to rip a man out of his own heartbeat. Eli Marrow froze beside his half-broken wagon, dust still drifting from the wheels, and whispered, "Lord help me. They've started early." He hadn't planned on witnessing a kidnapping, not today, not ever, but fate rarely asked permission in the Arizona territory. From behind a rocky rise, he watched 4 armed men dragging a massive young Apache woman toward a wagon. She didn't cry out. Instead, she dug her heels into the sand and fought like a mountain refusing to be moved. But even mountains fall when enough men push. Eli felt terror shaking his ribs. But something else pressed harder, rage, and a sense of wrong so heavy it nearly took his breath. He had seen cruelty in the frontier, but forcing a woman into marriage, that crawled under his skin like barbed wire. Then he saw the 5th man, Roger Hale. Eli's blood turned colder than creek water in December. Roger Hale, the rich cattle baron, the one who'd spent years buying land through threats and gun smoke, had finally reached the edge of his own madness. The Apache tribe had refused him an alliance. Instead of accepting it, he'd stolen their sister, their strongest, tallest, most respected warrior woman, known among her people as Sanitosa, the giant sister. She was powerful, revered and unwilling to bow to any man, and now Hale meant to marry her by force. Another gunshot cracked the silence. The men shoved Sanitosa to her knees. Eli's breath hitched. If she wasn't taken now, she'd be taken dead. "No," Eli whispered. "Not like this." He wasn't a hero. He wasn't a fighter. He wasn't even a man of means. He had 1 mule, 1 broken wagon, and a ranch that existed mostly in his imagination. But the West didn't need saints. Sometimes it needed a fool willing to stand up at the wrong time. Before he realized he'd moved, Eli stepped from behind the rock and shouted, "Hale, leave her be." "That woman ain't yours." 5 rifles swung toward him. The desert became so silent he could hear his own pulse. Roger Hale squinted. "Well, look at that. Eli Marrow, the poorest rancher in 3 counties. Come to save a damsel? Or just eager to die?" Eli swallowed hard. "That woman ain't going with you." Hale laughed, deep and ugly. "She is. Today, by sundown, she's my wife." Sanitosa lifted her gaze then, sharp, burning, unbroken. Something inside Eli locked into place. He could lie. He could run. He could play dead. Instead, he heard himself say the craziest thing ever spoken on Apache soil. "No, she can't marry you." He raised his voice. "Because she's already promised to me." Silence slammed down like a dropped anvil. Hale blinked. "What?" Eli lifted his chin. "She's my betrothed. My future wife. Been that way for months." The giant sister stared at him like he'd sprouted wings. The armed men looked at each other, confusion cracking their bravado. But Roger Hale's face twisted into something vicious. "You lying mule hugger. An Apache woman. Marry you? You don't have a dime." Eli's heart pounded like hoofbeats, but he didn't back down. "Love ain't measured in silver." One of the men spat. "Roger, he's bluffing." "Maybe," Hale growled. "But if the Apaches hear this, they'll demand proof. And I ain't about to risk war if he's telling the truth." Eli did the boldest thing he'd ever done. Walked straight toward Sanitosa, took her by the arm and lifted her gently to her feet. She towered over him by nearly a full head. Her muscles were coiled like a panther's ready to spring. He whispered so only she could hear, "Play along or we both die." She didn't move. Didn't blink. Then her jaw tightened. She slipped her arm through his. Hale's eyes nearly caught fire. "You two ain't married?" Eli forced a grin. "Not yet. But we're headed to town. Judge'll marry us proper." Hale stepped forward. "Over my dead." A 6th voice shattered the moment. "Enough." From behind Eli and Sanitosa appeared 4 Apache riders, silent as ghosts, each armed with a bow pulled taut. Their arrival was no accident. They had been shadowing their sister since the moment she was taken. Hale froze. His men didn't dare breathe. The Apache leader, Gray Eagle, spoke coldly. "Our sister chooses her own path. If she claims this man is her betrothed, then he is under our protection." Sanitosa finally spoke. Her voice was deep, calm, and powerful. "This man speaks truth." She placed a hand on Eli's chest, not affectionately, but firmly, like stamping a seal. Gray Eagle nodded. "Then take your chosen husband and go. We will escort you." Eli nearly fainted, but Hale wasn't done. "She ain't marrying that dirt farmer." He roared. "She's mine." Gray Eagle raised a hand. The bows tightened. Hale, he said softly. Choose your next words carefully. For the first time in known history, Roger Hale backed down. His mouth twisted and he spat into the dust. Fine, but this ain't over, Marrow. Eli didn't reply. He couldn't. His legs had gone numb. Sanitosa gripped his arm harder than any human should. Walk. He obeyed. They mounted her horse together, her choice, not his, and rode toward the Apache camp. Only when they were out of sight of Hale's men did she release a low breath. You, she said, are either the bravest fool ever born, or the most foolish brave man I have ever seen. Eli tried not to fall off the horse. Can't it be both? Her lip twitched. Not quite a smile, something rarer. When they reached the camp, dozens of Apache eyes turned toward them. Warriors stood, mothers halted their tasks, elders gathered with sudden interest. Gray Eagle announced the unbelievable news. Sanitosa returns, with the man she has chosen as husband. Shock rippled through the circle. Eli felt sweat trail down his spine. If she denied it now, he'd be a dead man before sunset. But Sanitosa dismounted and said loudly, "This man spoke for me." When others stayed silent, "He stood between me and danger. A man who does that is not a stranger." Gray Eagle nodded solemnly. "Then he stays as long as you command." Eli exhaled shakily. Night fell like velvet on fire. The tribe gathered around the central flames. Sanitosa sat tall beside him, too close, too strong, too proud for him to imagine she needed saving. But the threat wasn't over. Roger Hale was not a man to accept defeat. He had money, guns, and men who mistook cruelty for power. He would return, and when he did, the tribe might pay the price. Sanitosa studied Eli in the firelight. "Why did you claim me?" Eli stared at the flames. "Because a woman shouldn't be dragged into a life she didn't choose. That is not reason enough to risk death." He shrugged helplessly. "It was enough for me." She looked away, troubled. "Among my people, marriage is sacred. You have spoken a binding word." "I know," Eli swallowed. "But it don't have to be real. Not if you don't want it. We can say it was a misunderstanding when things calm down." She tilted her head. "You think I fear marriage?" "No, I think you fear being trapped." She didn't answer for a long time. Finally she said, "We decide tomorrow." But the night had other plans. In the darkest hour before dawn, distant hoofbeats stirred the silence. Scouts whistled alarms. Warriors grabbed weapons. Eli jolted awake as Sanitosa was already dragging him outside. Roger Hale had returned, with 10 riders and a wagon full of rifles. "Apache camp!" Hale shouted from the shadows. "Bring out the girl, or we burn the whole place down." Gray Eagle stood tall. "You are trespassing on sacred ground." Hale snarled. "I came for what's mine." Sanitosa stepped forward, voice strong enough to shake the night. "I am not yours." "You will be," Hale spat, "or your tribe will starve. I bought every water right from here to the river. You want your wells back? Give me the girl." Eli felt his stomach cave inward. Now it made sense. Hale wasn't after marriage. He was after leverage. He wanted to control the tribe through her. Eli stepped forward. "Hale, she's my fiancée. You said yourself you won't risk war if she's spoken for." Hale grinned wickedly. "A fiancé ain't a husband." Eli's blood froze. Hale lifted a rifle. "So let's settle this proper. Bring me proof. Show me the marriage papers. Or she comes with me." Gray Eagle whispered fiercely. "Eli Marrow, can you do what must be done?" Eli trembled. "What must be done?" "Marry her, now." The tribe formed an urgent circle. The elder stepped forward holding the sacred blanket, the symbol of binding spirits. Sanitosa's eyes locked on Eli's. She didn't flinch, didn't hesitate. "Will you stand?" she asked quietly. Eli's throat closed. "If you want me to." "I do." It was not a vow of love. It was a vow of choice. The elder raised his hands. "Join hands." Eli placed his trembling fingers in her strong, steady grasp. "In wind and fire, in earth and water, 2 spirits bind," the elder chanted. "You will speak truth to danger, and danger will fall silent before truth." Sanitosa's voice rumbled softly. "I stand with this man." Eli whispered, "I stand with her." The elder lowered the blanket over their joined hands. "You are bound." The camp erupted in a shout, not of celebration, but of defiance. Hale roared, "Lies!" Gray Eagle stepped forward. "You wanted proof. You heard the binding. Before our ancestors they are married." Hale raised his rifle. "Then I'll kill the groom." Before he could fire, Sanitosa leaped like a thunderbolt. She tackled Eli to the ground as the shot blazed past his ear. Apache arrows rained down in response. Chaos exploded. Hale fled toward his wagon. Warriors chased him, but Eli saw what others didn't. The barrel of dynamite Hale had rigged beneath his seat. "Hale's gonna blow the camp!" Eli screamed. Sanitosa didn't wait. She charged like a living storm. Hale lit the fuse and whipped his horses, shouting curses. Sanitosa leapt, grabbed the fuse, and snapped it off barehanded. Hale swung his rifle toward her, but Eli hurled a stone that struck Hale's temple. Hale collapsed. The threat ended with a thud. At sunrise, the tribe gathered again. Eli sat exhausted, hands shaking. Sanitosa stood beside him, tall as a cliff, proud as the morning sun. Gray Eagle addressed them both. The marriage was meant to save the tribe, but now the threat is gone. If you wish to part, we will undo the binding. Eli looked at Sanitosa. She studied him for a long moment. You spoke for me, she said. You stood between me and danger. You faced men larger than you without flinching. Eli blushed. I flinched a little. A smile, not fierce, not mocking, but warm, broke across her face. I choose to remain bound, she said softly. If you will have me. Eli's heart thumped against his ribs. That would be honored. Gray Eagle nodded with satisfaction. Then let the binding stand. Sanitosa extended her hand. Eli took it without fear. When they walked back through the camp side by side, the people whispered something new, something unexpected. They saved each other. And in the wild, harsh, unforgiving West, that was the beginning of a legend.